Hey y'all, so this week we're talking about the artist Henri Matisse. Henri Matisse was born in France on December 31st, 1869, and he really developed the style known as Fauvism, which means wild beast. So Henri Matisse really loved combining wild patterns and shapes together to create his artwork. Take a second to notice how each object or each surface has its own pattern and texture in this painting. You may also notice that all the colors are very bright and heavily saturated. So Matisse wasn't just a painter, he also really loved to cut out pieces of paper and glue them to a canvas to create a piece of artwork. Now you may notice that there's not much shading in this piece of artwork. In fact, Henri Matisse liked to experiment with flat color or just one single color instead of using multiple shades. Now this style was uniquely his own. However, if any of the elements of these pieces of artwork look familiar to you, it may be because he was best friends with Pablo Picasso, and the two artists eventually became rivals. So this week for your assignment, you're going to create two patterns very similar to Henri Matisse. So you're going to create a pattern for a wall and for a table. And I'm not going to tell you what we're going to do yet. I just want to show you how to create a pattern. So first, we're going to start by using the Shapes tool. Go ahead and select the background color for your pattern. And then we're going to grab a square. I'm choosing black right now because I think all other colors show up better on it. And I'm just grabbing a square. I'm leaving it the same size. I didn't change anything, and then I just hit that check mark. Now I'm going to experiment with different textures, lines, and shapes to create my pattern. So you've already had a little bit of experience with this before. It's kind of like your quilting squares. So be confident in what you're doing and be sure to use lots of detail. I'm actually going with galaxy colors here because I like those colors together. And I think the white stands out really well. Notice that I'm not just using one type of line and that I'm also changing my line weight. Now to make this next part easier, go back and use your eraser tool and erase anywhere outside your box. You really don't want to have any remnants left of any type of drawing. I'm trying to be very careful here not to erase my square in the process, but also get as much of the drawing as I can. Now I'm making sure that I'm zoomed out all the way. It is nice to zoom in while you're working on your design to make sure you get lots of detail. Now I'm using the cutter tool. So I tapped my screen and it's going to select everything you've drawn so far on the screen. So if you didn't do a very good job of erasing like me, then it's going to select most of the screen. But if you've done a great job erasing, it's going to select just the little square in your drawing. Now you may not have as hard of a time as I had with this because the spray tool makes it a little bit harder. If you do have a hard time with it or can't get it to go exactly around the square, you can just draw a smaller square around it. Now I'm copying my square by holding two fingers down and dragging. If you just hold down one finger, it's just going to move the square, but two will copy it. Now I want you to fill up the entire white background that you can by copying and pasting these squares. I can typically fit about 9 on my page. If you make a mistake during this process, do not try to recut a new piece of your drawing or erase. Please just hit the undo button if you make a mistake. You may also accidentally resize your squares, and that's okay. You can just size them back, or again, just hit the undo button. Remember, I am using two fingers to drag to make a copy. When you are finished filling up your canvas with your 9 pattern squares, you need to take a picture or take a screenshot or save your picture. Screenshotting is probably easier because you can immediately click and edit all of the white out of the photo, but I am going to show you how to save it and then edit out the white. So click on the three little dots, the box with the arrow pointing out, and then save image. Now before we actually go and edit all the white out of this picture, we need to make one more pattern. So the pattern I just made was for the wall. Now we need to make a pattern for the table. I'm opening up a brand new page to do this, and I'm starting with the same process, just a square. And I'm going to use colors I think will look good with my last pattern. I also want to mention here, I did not make the square bigger. I left it the same size. I just zoomed in so I could create better details. Now because I didn't use the spray tool for this one, I was just able to actually tap my screen and select the drawing instead of drawing a square around it. I do think this process is easier to just be able to tap your screen. And I'm doing the same thing where I'm using two fingers to drag and make a copy and fill up my entire canvas with these square patterns. Make sure you screenshot or save your image. Then close Seesaw and open up your photos. This little one that looks like a rainbow flower. Select the pattern you wish to edit and then tap Edit. Edit is actually in the top right hand side of the screen. In order to crop, click on the box with the two arrows around it. And then you can drag the corners that have the little white piece on them to trim off all the white. When you are finished trimming your picture, hit Done. Do this for both your wall pattern and your table pattern. Then go into Seesaw, and we're going to upload these patterns by clicking on the camera in the upload. It's the one with the cloud. You want to go to your recent, so your photos, and grab both patterns. Resize your pattern so they fit in the black box, and you can decide where your table starts and stops. Once you are finished uploading both patterns and fitting them both into the black box, you can go ahead and hit that green check mark. And you'll need to finish this week's activity before you can do next week's.